Sanctions always help at the end the countries that have been on the receiving end. The US has been using sanctions as a weapon to destroy any competition to their own local industry, but the funniest thing is that they exported all their major industries outside in order to increase their profitability. These strategies have brought short-term results that really did not benefit the US. On the contrary, the same corporations that have been manufacturing in Asia and India kept a major portion of their profit margins in offshore non-taxable regions. During this period, Americans lost jobs and were more dependent on even strategic components like microchips. It is easy to export your manufacturing facilities, but very difficult to bring them back home. The sanctions against China's Huawei have turned out another fiasco for the US administration trying to sabotage Huawei's advanced technologies in 5G. They tried everything to destroy Huawei instead of working with them. The US had done a similar game against Nokia and Europe with the GSM technology, which was superior to Motorola's technology. It took several years for the US to accept GSM. Another great example of the negative effects of sanctions has been with Turkey, a NATO member. The Obama administration decided to sanction and put an embargo against Turkey. They refused to give Patriot missiles for Turkey's air defense, and they pushed them to buy from Russia S-400s. As a follow-up to Turkey's decision, the US decided to punish Turkey by kicking them out of the F-35 program where Turkey had invested over $1.6 billion. Once more, these sanctions played for Turkey because they ended up getting the S-400s, which are superior to the Patriots. They ended up not getting the F-35s, which turned out to be overpriced lemons. Today, Turkey has passed from 20% to 85% for their locally made defense material, including drones, missiles, and fighter jets. Turkey is a net exporter with over $10 billion in defense products. The moral of sanctions has always played against the US, and they turned friendly nations into enemies. The impact of sanctions on countries lessons from the US experience. Sanctions have long been used as a tool of foreign policy by nations, including the United States, to influence the behavior of other countries. However, the effectiveness of sanctions is a subject of debate, and their impact on both target countries and the country imposing them can vary widely. This document explores the idea that sanctions may not always yield the desired results and uses examples from the US experience to illustrate this point. US industry and the paradox of sanctions. The United States has frequently employed sanctions as a means to eliminate competition for its domestic industries. However, it's essential to note the paradox in this strategy. While the US imposed sanctions to protect its local industries, many American companies chose to offshore their major manufacturing operations to countries like Asia and India to enhance profitability. Example: American technology companies outsourced the manufacturing of electronic devices to Asia, resulting in the loss of jobs in the US. Companies also retained a significant portion of their profits in offshore, non-taxable regions. Impact: the short-term gains for these American corporations did not necessarily benefit the US economy, as it lost jobs and became dependent on foreign sources for essential components, such as microchips. Sanctions on Huawei and the 5G technology race. Sanctions imposed by the US on Chinese telecommunications giant Huawei exemplify the potential negative consequences of such actions. Instead of collaborating with Huawei on advanced 5G technology, the US chose to hinder its progress. Example: the US attempted to obstruct Huawei's development and growth through sanctions, creating a technological rivalry. Impact: this approach may have hindered global technological progress and economic cooperation, as well as led to missed opportunities for mutual innovation. Sanctions against Turkey and defense self-reliance. The case of sanctions against Turkey, a NATO member, highlights the complex consequences of imposing punitive measures. The US withheld Patriot missiles from Turkey's air defense and pressured them into purchasing Russian S-400 systems, leading to further sanctions. Example: the US sanctioned Turkey for its defense procurement choices and removed it from the F-35 program, causing Turkey to invest heavily in developing its defense capabilities. Impact: Turkey's response to sanctions included boosting its domestic defense production, which ultimately led to self-reliance in defense manufacturing, a shift from a 20% to 85% share in locally made defense materials, and significant defense exports. In conclusion, the unintended consequences of sanctions. The examples discussed above demonstrate that sanctions can yield unintended consequences, including stimulating innovation, encouraging self-reliance, and driving countries to seek alternative solutions. Sanctions may initially appear effective in achieving policy goals, but they can have broader repercussions that may not align with the original intentions. While sanctions can sometimes be a necessary tool in foreign policy, policymakers must carefully consider the potential long-term consequences and weigh the risks of imposing sanctions against the benefits they aim to achieve. The case of the United States serves as a reminder that the impact of sanctions is not always straightforward, and they can sometimes backfire, altering the geopolitical landscape in unforeseen ways. In the spirit of Milton Friedman, an advocate for free markets and minimal government intervention, let's analyze the topic of sanctions and their unintended consequences through a Friedman-esque lens. 1. The invisible hand and sanctions. Milton Friedman often emphasized the power of the invisible hand of the free market. Sanctions, when imposed by a government, are essentially interventions in the market. They disrupt the natural flow of trade and commerce, leading to unintended outcomes. Example 1. When the U.S. imposed sanctions to protect its local industries, it attempted to manipulate market forces. However, businesses, driven by the pursuit of profits, chose to relocate manufacturing to foreign countries. This exemplifies how government interventions often fail to align with market dynamics. Impact 1. The unintended consequence was the loss of jobs in the U.S. and increased dependency on foreign sources for essential components. The invisible hand, which usually guides resources efficiently, was disrupted, leading to suboptimal results. 2. The tyranny of the status quo. Friedman was critical of policies and practices that perpetuated the status quo, especially when it stifled innovation and progress. Example 2. The U.S., by imposing sanctions on Huawei, attempted to maintain the dominance of its own technology companies in the 5G sector. However, this perpetuated the status quo and hindered innovation by preventing collaboration with a potentially innovative competitor. Impact 2. By resisting change and propping up existing industries, the U.S. may have missed out on opportunities for technological advancement, falling into the trap of the tyranny of the status quo. 3. Unintended consequences and government actions. Friedman often warned of the unforeseen consequences of government intervention. Example 3. The sanctions against Turkey, ostensibly aimed at punishing its defense procurement choices, resulted in an unexpected outcome. Turkey invested heavily in developing its domestic defense capabilities. Impact 3. This unforeseen outcome illustrates how government actions can lead to unintended consequences. Rather than weakening Turkey, sanctions contributed to its self-reliance and the growth of its defense industry. 4. A call for pragmatism. Milton Friedman advocated for pragmatic policies rooted in economic theory. He believed that policies should be evaluated based on their real-world consequences rather than intentions. Conclusion. In the realm of sanctions, a Friedman-style analysis urges us to consider the real-world outcomes and unintended consequences. While sanctions may be implemented with noble intentions, they often disrupt the natural workings of the market, hinder innovation, and lead to unexpected results. Friedman would caution policymakers to carefully evaluate the effectiveness and long-term impact of sanctions, always mindful of the power of the invisible hand and the potential tyranny of the status quo.